My name is Meredith Davis. I am the co-author of Her Own 2 Feet. And my co-author is Rebecca Uatonze. This is her on the cover. And I just want to tell you a little bit about my book. And I want to say thank you to all people who put the right book in the right person's hands. And I used to do the very same thing. I used to work at an independent children's bookstore, and it just delighted me to find the right book to put in the right person's hands. And so that's what I want to do today, is just tell you a little bit about this book so you'll know if it's the right book to put in the right kid's hands. And so this book is a narrative nonfiction, and one of the things that I like to tell kids is everything in this book is true. Even the things that are hard to believe are true. One of the things that's really hard to believe is that this little girl, Rebecca, there are only 2 photographs of this girl that exist before the age of 9. This book has both of those photos in it. One of those photos is right here. That's a photo of Rebecca when she was 3 years old. This book actually has 70 photos in it. So when you look in the book, you'll see lots of pictures in it, which is one of the cool things about this book. One of the other things I like to ask kids is, why do you think these pictures are so, this colors on this jacket that Scholastic chose are so bright and colorful? And sometimes they'll say, because you can see it on the shelf. And I'm like, yeah, I love that Scholastic chose bright colors that you see on the shelf. But the other reason is because these are the colors of the Rwandan flag, and the color yellow for the sun, the color blue for the sky, and the color green for the earth. And Rebecca comes from Rwanda. And so I love that they were just cognizant of that they thought about it and were careful to just pay homage to Rwanda with even the colors on the book jacket. And so I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully you guys will be able to see some photos that I like to share when I do school visits. So let's see if we can get it to work here. So, okay. I'm gonna say play from start. All right, so can you guys see it? Mm-hmm. All right, so this is a picture of Rebecca and I holding the book, and this is just outside her school building where Rebecca goes to school. And I like to tell kids that I wish that I could take Rebecca with me to all of our school visits, but I can't because Rebecca lives in Rwanda. And I like to show kids a picture of her country, which is right in the center of Rwanda. It's a tiny little country right in the middle of Africa. Sorry, I said right in the center of Rwanda. Rwanda is right in the center of Africa. It's a little country. And I love to show people pictures of Rwanda. It's very green, very lush. And I show them pictures of Rebecca's home, which is in the bottom left-hand corner. It's a picture of Rebecca's house. And I show pictures of the country of Rwanda, especially in the countryside. A lot of people don't have running water in their homes. So they carry these jerry cans, is what they call them, these yellow cans. And they'll stand in line at water wells, or sometimes they'll go to lakes or rivers to get their water because they don't have running water within their home. And it's kind of a chore. Kids do this, women do this. You'll see them carrying these jerry cans on their heads or on bikes. And a lot of times I'll ask kids, do you like doing chores? And they'll say no. And I say, well, you know what? Rebecca wished that she could do chores, but Rebecca, when she was born with club feet. And I'll show them this picture. Rebecca's feet were curled when she was born, and her arms and her legs, they didn't work the same way that a lot of kids' arms and legs do. And so she crawled for the first 7 years of her life. She crawled. So she couldn't do chores. She kind of wished that she could. She wished she could play. She wished she could run and do the things that other kids do, but she crawled on the ground until she was 7. And that's when she learned how to walk. So she walked on the tops of her feet. This is her in the blue shirt. She's walking with her little sister Media in the red skirt. This picture was taken when Rebecca was 9 years old. And this was a special day. The man in the orange shirt is my husband. This was taken right after Rebecca started going to school. And you heard me right. Rebecca was 9 years old when she first started going to school, because in Rwanda, you have to pay to go to school. You have to pay fees for tuition and for clothes and for books, and a lot of children in Rwanda just don't have the money to go to school. But there's this organization, there's lots of organizations that do this. There's one called African New Life, and you can get a sponsor. So somebody else will pay for your fees so that you can go to school. And so Rebecca and her sister had finally gotten a sponsor. So they were able to go to school. This woman on the left-hand side, the one with the blonde hair, was a sponsor for Rebecca's little sister. And she had come to visit her. And so they were so excited. They got to meet their sponsor. And my husband happened to be there that day. He was just kind of along for the ride, and he had taken some pictures. And when he came back to Austin, which is where we live, Austin, Texas, he happened to know Rebecca's sponsor, who lived in Austin. And that sponsor happened to be a doctor, just happened to be. He had no idea that Rebecca's feet were turned and twisted. And it turns out that Rebecca's feet were turned and twisted, and it was great that she had learned how to walk, but she wasn't always going to be able to walk. And she was eventually going to have to go back to crawling. When she got older and she got heavier, her ankles were not going to be able to support her weight. And it was also really hard for her to walk on her ankles. I mean, on her turned feet. And so it was just kind of this temporary solution. But this doctor, her sponsor, when he saw her feet, he showed her pictures to some doctors here in Austin. And they said, you know what, if Rebecca can get to Austin, we'll look at her feet. And if there's something we can do for her, we'll help her. And so all of a sudden, Rebecca had this choice to make. And I love that Scholastic did this. Our publisher put this question right inside our book. It says, what if you had one chance to change your life? And so I ask this question to kids right when I come in the door, right before I start our school visits. Actually, I say, okay, guys, I have this question for you. What if you had one chance to change your life? Because that's something that happened to Rebecca. And there's something that we do in the book. We put these Kinyarwandan phrases. Kinyarwanda is the language they speak in Rwanda. And so the phrase is amahigwe azarimwe. And I teach the kids how to say that. And it means chance comes once. So Rebecca had this chance. She had the funds to be able to fly to America. We had raised those through African New Life, but she would have to leave her family, live with strangers, have surgery. She'd never spoken English before. She didn't speak the language. She'd have to go fly across the ocean. It was this really scary thing, but if it worked, her feet would be turned. She'd be able to walk for the rest of her life on the bottom of her feet. It would be life-changing. And so Rebecca said yes. Her family said yes. Her mother made matching dresses for Rebecca and Media so they could take this family picture, and she did it. And this is when Rebecca's life and my life connected, because they asked our family if we would be Rebecca's host family while she came to live in America, and we said yes too. And so this was the picture of Rebecca when she arrived in the airport, and she was so tiny and so afraid. Here she was in the airport. Pretty quickly, Rebecca got used to America, and she was courageous, and she was curious, and she was excited. And so she loved to run on the trampoline. She loved to play in the backyard. She loved to play with our phones. She loved to play with the electricity switches, the light switches, because that was something she didn't have in her home. But Rebecca was here for surgeries. It wasn't all fun and games. So I love to show this picture to the kids, especially this funny face that she's making because she had to take yucky medicine. The casts were sometimes painful. The surgeries were definitely painful. But Rebecca was kind of strong and courageous. She learned English. She did have 31 casts and 58 hospital visits while she was here. We really got to know each other. I had a great respect for Rebecca. I also grew to really love Rebecca, and she grew to love our family. I love this picture. She had such a funny personality. She could make great faces. She really made us laugh. I love that she carved her pumpkin to match her face in this picture. After her surgeries, Rebecca did physical therapy. She worked really, really hard. She had a goal of walking a mile, and that's exactly what she did. And after about a year, Rebecca flew back home. We had no idea that we were going to write a book together. She got back home, and she was so excited to see her sister. She was very, very close to Media, her sister, and she talked about her sister a lot while she was in America. She missed her family a lot. She missed her parents a lot. All of these things that I had no idea would become a book, but they were just part of our time together. I journaled a lot while she was with us. I was a blogger. I was a writer while she was with us. And so I blogged about her time with us. I love this picture of Rebecca because it really shows the transformation. When she was young in Rwanda, she was often timid. She was not always treated well. People made fun of her. Sometimes having a disability in Africa can be a bad thing, and you aren't treated very well. But when she came back, she really had a story to tell, and she had a lot of confidence to share that. Okay, so 5 years passed. I was a writer. I had shared her story. People always were talking and wanting to hear about Rebecca's story. And I started thinking, you know what? I wonder if people would love to read a story about Rebecca. My agent, I signed with my agent while Rebecca was living with us. My agent was curious about if maybe we wanted to tell that story, but I didn't want to tell it by myself. I didn't want to tell it unless Rebecca wanted to partner with me. So I contacted Rebecca. I said, hey, what do you think about telling your story together? I flew back to Rwanda in 2017, and we started working on it together. And one of the things that we talked about, this is just a picture of those times. I went in 2017, 18, and 19, and we worked on it. We researched it, worked on edits with my editor. One of the things that came from those conversations was this whole symbol of a butterfly. Butterflies migrate across the ocean. They fly 2,000 miles. I'm sorry, not across the ocean, but across America. From Canada to Mexico, Rebecca flew across the ocean. Butterflies undergo transformation. Scholastic picked up on that and used butterflies in the book. We had this phrase, strong like a butterfly. Rebecca was strong like a butterfly, and Rebecca underwent transformation. A butterfly puts itself in a cocoon and transformation happens. Rebecca's feet were in a hard cast, and inside that cast, transformation happened. And so we use that phrase, strong like a butterfly, quite a bit in the book. Well, in 2020, a year after the book came out, a little less than a year, Rebecca got to come back to America. Super cool. The book was nominated for an NAACP Image Award, and we got to go to the award ceremony. It was a huge, exciting thing. But she was also able to do some school visits with me. And while we were at the school visits, we noticed that there were butterflies everywhere. The kids really picked up on the strong like a butterfly symbol. And she was a superstar. She did great at the school visits. She loved talking to kids. She wasn't nervous. Got out in front of 200 kids, and she just did great. I love showing this picture to kids because it just shows her transformation. And I love to tell kids, you can all be strong like butterflies. But I also tell kids, you don't have to go through this amazing, crazy story like Rebecca did. You don't have to move to a foreign country where you don't speak the language and have surgeries. I teach them a mahigwe azarimwe, chance comes once, and every day you all have a chance to make a choice. And there's this quote in the book. She had a choice to make each day, and that chance came only once. She would choose joy. And so I tell kids, you all have a chance to choose something every day, and it's a pretty big choice. And the choice you can make is to choose joy. And so, yeah, I tell teachers that's what my school visit's all about. It's about encouraging kids to be strong and courageous. And so, I hope that's what Rebecca and I can do for kids. That's what our book is all about. I'm happy to answer questions. I shared in the chat how you can find me. And the other thing I'll just share is that I would love for Rebecca to come on all of those school visits, but I knew she wouldn't be able to, being in Rwanda with the time differences and all those things. But what I did do is I made this 7-minute video that just features Rebecca talking to kids and giving a tour of her home and her school, and answering kids' questions. So before the book even came out, I had these galleys that I shared with kids, and I had them read it, and I had them ask questions. And then I took those questions, I videoed the kids asking the questions, and I took those questions with me to Rwanda, and I had Rebecca listen to the questions and answer them. And then I videoed her answers, and I spliced that all together in a video, and I take that video with me to school visits. And so I show that to kids, and I'm like, if Rebecca was here, here's like a little taste so they can hear her voice, so they can hear her answering questions. And they get just a little bit of Rebecca in those school visits, even though she can't quite be there for them. So that's it. That's what I got for you.